الحمد لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Deen lovers, welcome back, our brothers and sisters, to another Deen Love episode. Today we have a lot to get into. This is probably going to be a heavy podcast. Like it who like it, hate it who hate it. But I have with me two of our greatest members of this podcast, and Ali Deen and Ustad Dawood. How are you guys doing, man?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Glad to be here as always. Alhamdulillah.
Nah. Like brother Dawood's like, let's start.
Let's get to the point.
Let's start. So, alhamdulillah, we're all doing well, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of our viewers and to make sure and to make our feet steadfast on guidance. Today we have a very, very interesting subject, and this subject is one that's very controversial.
Highly
I think that many people speak about it, but they speak about it from different lenses. Mostly this is a ideology that's praised more than anything. And it's rarely critiqued, except in the context of politics, whether you're on conservatism or democratic DFL or all this other stuff. But we want to look at this lens, or we want to look at this ideology from the lens of Islam, which is feminism. As you guys know, this is already a deep topic. This is a deep mas'ala because it's not something that somebody just came up with in their backyard 2 weeks ago. But this is something that has been prevalent and it has been developing, and it has, today what it is today is not what it was when it first started. So we got to talk about it from a historical basis and really analyze it critically from the lens of a Muslim who believes in Allah and His Messenger and is as I would say, is a unapologetic Muslim. Okay. So first the question is, what is feminism? First, the definition of feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. Okay. Two, another definition is the belief in and advocacy of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, expressed especially through organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. This foundation is very important to know because many people may throw around labels and call themselves this and that, but they don't even know the definition. They don't know the basic definition. Sure, you may argue, okay, well, people, they differ today on what it is, and there's third world women and first world. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about a definition that all women who hold themselves or embrace this ideology, they would accept. You guys think that's reasonable? These definitions are reasonable, that most women who would, if not all of them, who would ascribe themselves to this ideology, that they will accept that this is about the advocacy of women's rights and having, equality, social equality in society with men and women.
I would say at the core, that's their core message, but like you said, they differ in how they interpret and apply it based on different time, place, society, all that. There's so many different variables. So that in general, that what you described as a definition is what they would probably all agree upon. But how they apply it into their lives or society differs. Okay. For sure.
Okay. Ali Deen.
Yes.
So before we go into istinbat and extrapolating evidences from the Quran and Sunnah, let us just go through just this basic definition. But before that, let's talk about just some basic concepts about women in Islam. How are women perceived in Islam by Allah? And what does He say about them? You know, how are women? Are they second-class citizens? Are they, in the back seat? Are they individuals that are deprived of, dignity? Are they people that are honored and human beings that are, intended for respect and, dignity? So what do you think?
Yeah, no, excellent question. First and foremost, there's no such thing as gender equality. Islam points out that there's gender just, okay? Each gender has specific roles.
Equity.
So we need to stop this push that men and women are exactly equal.
Okay.
From just a vision standpoint, we are not. Right? Okay. You can look at two people, a man and a woman, you can tell the difference right away. SubhanAllah, it's kind of changing right now, but we're not even going to get into that topic. But Islam has come to honor women in a way that's unimaginable, but the media is going to portray it a different way. And what do I mean by honor women? Just take, for example, the mothers of Islam, right? The wives of the Prophet ﷺ and what they have accomplished. The roles, even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in many places how the times of Jahiliyyah, how they would treat women. Okay. They used to hate the daughters first and foremost. They used to hate when a family has a daughter. It was almost like
a shameful thing.
Very shameful. So they would go to the extreme where they were burying the daughters alive, subhanAllah. And Allah mentions that in the Quran and asks why they were being buried. What have they done to deserve being killed or to be in that position? And subhanAllah, when Islam came, it gave more than just honor. It gave them the opportunity to be recognized for who they are and gave them a sense of status that takes them to a whole nother level. Right now, for example, we don't have the biological capabilities of carrying a child. It is impossible. No. And what does Allah do when a woman goes through that, and their body changes and through their monthly cycles and all these things? And Allah says, you guys are already going through tough times. You don't need to pray. Take it easy on yourself. Relax. Let your body rejuvenate and do X, Y, and Z. So to just that level, I want to say that Islam is really here to uplift women. And we can go on and about that, but I just want to give a brief definition or description of that.
Okay. Brother Dawood, what do you think about, how does Islam portray women in society? What honor and dignity does it give women? What status does it give them in society?
That's a deep question, but to be honest, of course, the Islamic lens and the lens that we see within the liberal society is different. How we view women completely. And that's where most of the divide and the issue comes from. Yeah. And the conflict that happens to Muslim women living in the West. But to answer your question, Islamically, we value our women folk. We value them, I would say, much, much, much more than they do here in the Western world. We look at her honor and her dignity as something very precious.
Correct.
Right? Very precious. So you look at a lot of the Islamic legislation, the whole conflict of what the Western world views as oppression, we actually view as honor. In terms of her preserving the woman's chastity.
Correct.
And having a wali, or when she's traveling, having that protector, and all these things they may see as oppression, but in reality it shows that Islam is all about protecting the women folk.
Correct.
Right? Understanding that when the reality that men and women, when they're in the same place on equal pedestals, that the men are always going to have this upper hand on them, whether it be through dominance or physically or any form. And there's no shame in saying that. That's just a fact.
It's a biological.
It's a biological fact, and Islam preserves the woman, protects the woman.
Right.
Her honor, her dignity, her safety is something that we take seriously, and at the same time we understand that her value to the society in terms of, we don't belittle or make something that's her asal, her how would I say, her way of living, her femininehood, like her femininity is something that Islam embraces.
Right.
They're not trying to, we don't clock cloak that with trying to be a masculine figure. That's just two different things. Embracing the fact that there's masculine and there's feminine, and the femininity of the woman is something that is preserved, and there's no need for her to be considered like a masculine figure. And we all know what traditional, and I think at some point we should discuss what is traditional masculinity and traditional femininity, so people can understand where I'm coming from. So that traditional femininity is something that Islam upholds. We uphold the fitrah, the natural disposition of male and female, and masculine and feminine. So that's definitely in Islam, and the Sharia, like the legislation that we have, further proves that. And like Brother Ali mentioned, there's specific rules and legislations that, the most part, they're the same for male and female, but in certain areas, they're particular to the particular gender. And that shows that we're not all about equality, but we're about placing things in the right place. Proper place is what we know as hikmah, the definition of hikmah, right? You place everything in its right, proper place. Obviously, we're not exactly the same. Obviously, we cannot exactly be equal. That's just illogical. So that cannot be the conclusion. The conclusion is putting things in its correct place, and that's to be just and to be fair. And who better to do that than the creator of men and women, right? All together. So that's the Islamic lens.
What if somebody, because we don't want anybody to leave this podcast with misconceptions, well, they say, well, men and women are equal in the sight of Allah.
And are they equal? Yes, they're equal in value in the sight of Allah. La shak. Like a believing man and a believing woman are going to get reward in the akhirah. The same way, right? The jaza'ul jannah, la shak. It's not that, you were a believing man and you're going to get a better place in Jannah because you're a believing man.
So when the woman reads the Quran and the man reads the Quran, it's not like the man gets like 0.5 reward or anything more.
Exactly.
So they get the same. Okay, and then the sins will be the same. Okay.
The burden the same, the reward the same.
Okay, so we want everybody to understand this.
Clear cut.
So, alhamdulillah, as we see just in this, we're exploring these things because we want people to know the type of status that women are given. So, for example, what does Islam do? It makes women respectable for who they are, right, and their intellect and the intelligence that they bring and the contributions that they provide as mothers, sisters, women to society, and not a piece of meat, as is proposed by Western ideology, liberalism and atheism, right, where it's a godless society, so women just allow them to do what they want. And so what happens is men, they degrade them and they look at them, they deduce them to just a piece of steak, flesh, meat, right, and for their beauty and their flesh. But Islam says women are more than that. That's why they cover up, right, because we don't look at them as an object. We don't objectify them, but we look at them as human beings that have a role in society. A man comes to the woman and asks her father for her hand to show that level of respect, and not that he takes her, he uses her, he misuses her, abuses her, and throws her off into the trash can. A woman in Islam, she's allowed to keep her own name, right? She doesn't take the name of her husband when she gets married like they do in this society. That was to show that the woman belonged to the man and she was his property. You see, look at the empowerment that Islam gives to the woman already, and this is what they're attacking. Okay, because we could talk about women being buried and this, but they'll say, I can hear somebody already saying, well, women aren't getting buried today, right? It's a civilized society. What are you guys talking about, right? So they want answers to some of the cultural issues that are happening today. And the reason why they want answers to it is because many people, women, sisters, even some brothers, believe it or not, think that feminism has an adequate answer and response to these issues than Islam does.
Yes, for sure.
So this is what we have to get down to and get cracking on today. Okay. So it's important to put all this in perspective. The rights of women, we need to know, because it's not like these rights and these these rights that women were given 1400 years ago, it's not like it was only for that time. And we see that these rights transcend through history, through time, space, place, and but the problem is when you have too much of something, so you can go overboard. You can have too many rights, which now it starts to pollute the minds of the people. Or you can have few rights, less rights, right? Which it makes open for injustice and those sort of things. So both are at both ends of the spectrum. They're both injustice. They're both oppression, right? And that's why Islam always comes with that wasata. It comes with that moderation, that balance there, right? So even if you give too many rights to men or too many rights to children, then it would leave the parents oppressed. Give too many rights to men over the women, it will leave the women oppressed. But it's not even about the quantity, it's about the quality. You know what I'm saying? Because the rights that are given are respective to the nature of both the men and the women.
Absolutely.
And this is the part that they don't get. It's like they're looking at it through a lens of quantity. Oh, well, they have a lot, we don't have a lot, right? But if you look at the honor that Allah has given, right, we're talking about value now. Okay, this is, it transcends any sort of materialistic view or lens that other people, non-Muslims, will look at it from. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss here some questions. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions in the Quran, he mentions in Surah Al-Hujurat, it's a general verse, but it explains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created us in our, in our conditions, in our systems, in our groups, right? Allah says it in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. And I want to hone in on that last part. Allah says in the Quran, إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. So he says we've created men, we've created women, males, females, nations and tribes, so that they may know each other. But then he ends off by saying, and it's almost in an indirect way, Allah is implying here, even though all those things, the differences, and you have, the different values, you have the different groups and spaces and tribes and nations, the most important and the most valuable in the sight of Allah is what? The one who has the most taqwa. And unlike skin color and ethnicity and culture, taqwa is not something that you can put a measure stick on. Like, you can't rate somebody's taqwa. This is something that ultimately belongs with Allah, you see. So it shows you that the inner, the intrinsic value that Allah gives us, and the internal, honor and karam that Allah gives us and that we attain is more important to him than the external. Now, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions about Maryam, when her mother wanted a son, he says, Laysa dhakara kal untha. He says that the male, because she was disappointed, the mother of Maryam was disappointed that she gave birth to a female. She wanted a male so it could be a prophet and it can honor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah reiterated to Maryam's mother at that time, that the male, laysa dhakara kal untha, the male is not like the female, right? And showing her that what I gave you more is better. Now, it doesn't mean across the board that men are less than women or women are less than men, but in that moment she was looking for something. Perhaps her culture would have favored more a male, but Allah, he wanted to bring something home and to show that Maryam, the daughter that she gave birth to, was an example. You see, a model for women to be like, and they can attain that level. It's possible, you see. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't leave anything out of the Quran, right? وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا. He didn't leave anything out. He gave a role model for everybody, right? And then the last ayah of the Quran that I want to get into, and we know that aslan, this verse is about inheritance, but like we said, generally the ayah itself still stands in many different respects. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نصيب مما اكتسبن. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, and don't ask for, you know, the rights. Men shouldn't be asking for what women have, and women shouldn't be asking for what the men have. That He gave the men their fair share, and He gave the women their fair share. And this shows us that Allah is calculated. He knows what He's doing. When He gives certain rights to men, and He gives them fadl over the women, He knows what He's doing, right? And when He does that for women and gives them certain fadl or fadila, that He knows what He's doing. This is not a mistake. Allah didn't forget anything.
Correct.
When He brought down this deen, He didn't forget about 2022 or 2050. You see what I'm saying? So this is important for us to know. With everything that we mentioned and the definitions of feminism, this is a question I have for both of you, whoever wants to go. Is this an ideology that's compatible with Islam?
First of all, any ideology that has forms of waves or anything that changes over time just to meet the status of society will not be compatible with Islam. Straight to the point. The reason why is it caters to society. It caters to changes all the time, and things change constantly. But if you don't have structure, law and order, and things in place for people to follow, then you are giving everything up for interpretation in your own way.
So are you saying that the evolution is an indication that it has deficiency?
Absolutely. We can go through the different waves, different times of feminism, but if you look at the early age and now, it's two totally different things. So it went beyond fighting for equality. Now it's the hate of men, right? So how can that be something that can be compatible and accepted in Islam, right? It is unacceptable. So I don't want to go too far into that because I'm sure we have a lot of topics to go, but no, it is not compatible. It doesn't go hand in hand with Islam. And if you want true honor and true status of a woman, learn about Islam. Yeah.
So Jazakumullah khairan. Brother Dawood, before we get into this next question, I want to ask you, right? And so we don't want to leave out the concerns and the grievances that some women or sisters may have. Are there cultural issues in which our Muslim sisters, in respect to the cultures or the societies or the ethnicities that they're coming from, are there issues that are oppressing them?
Yes.
Okay.
Most definitely. To be oppressive, we want to give a definition to that in a sense, is to either take away someone's rights in the sense that right that Allah has given them, or to overburden them is another thing. And there is definitely examples of both. Both of where the right of a woman is taken away, or they're being overwhelmed and overburdened. Yes. Which and Islam, we understand that, we highlight that. That's a problem. I want to give an example of that is when in a family structure, because when we're talking about feminism, it's almost like a way of life, where the woman views herself in a certain way, and that's another issue with the incompatibility issue.
Yeah.
Where Islam, we have a way of life, and then feminism is telling you a way of life.
Right.
Because Islam, it touches upon all aspects
Okay.
of our lives, right? So the feminist is telling you live this way, and Islam is telling you live this way.
Right.
You can't have two.
No.
Right? We have to hear and obey to Allah and His Messenger. So the contradiction happens there altogether. And then you have the constant evolution the brother mentioned of the truth is consistent. The truth is thorough.
Right.
Doesn't matter where you are, what time, this is the truth. You follow it. There's that issue. But in going back to the question is, I wanted to provide an example of what I would consider to be oppressive. You have a family. You have a family structure. When I say family structure, I mean a man and a woman, the seed of a family, right? The husband and a wife. You have a husband who, and this actually for me is actually one of the results of feminism. Okay. One of the consequences of feminism, I would say.
Good.
Where you have, maybe not so much, maybe in Muslim societies or cultures, but in general, you have men who are not really at all doing their role as father figures Islamically. Absolutely
Great
zero.
point, yeah.
They view it as me and the woman are exactly and equivocally the same.
Oh, wow.
The money aspect, the bills to pay, the work that we do.
50-50 me out.
Everything 50-50, brother. That's 50-50, brother. 50-50. Mahar, what is mahar? Like, forget about mahar. This thing, anything that caters specifically to the woman, that doesn't exist. Because they actually are following the exact liberal or, the latest definition of feminism, where everything is unequivocally the same.
Yeah.
Man and woman are exactly the same. We don't appreciate any differences being highlighted whatsoever. Whether it be in the family life, society life, work life, don't matter. They are the same. No. If he carries 100 kilograms, she has to carry 100 kilograms. That logic, which is completely illogical.
Right.
But, well, that oppresses the women folk. And Islam, we give that mas'uliyah, the leadership of the family, the provision of the family, the protection of the family is all on the back of the man.
No. Because
without a doubt. Because
the male is more suited
for that. There's a hikmah behind it. There's a wisdom. We have to understand. SubhanAllah. Allah Azza wa Jal created us a certain way. So whatever He's legislated for us is for our own good, whether we know it or not. And upon a Muslim is to follow it, whether we know it or not. And that's the key thing I was mentioning to you earlier of the issue of submission. Where we have to truly understand as Muslims, as true Muslims, true people who submit to Allah Azza wa Jal, is that when we hear something and we understand this is a legislation from Allah and His Messenger, and we believe upon this message, then it's upon us to submit.
Yes.
There is no like, well, brother, that was their time, this is our time, but this, bada. Then you're not truly submitting.
No.
What submission are you claiming?
It shows even a lack of trust in Allah.
100%.
Because it's kind of like, okay, I understand that's what's there, but we need to do something about this issue, like as if Islam has no
answer, as if the Deen is incomplete.
No, actually, about the question that I asked you about the oppression, and I'm going to give it to Ali Deen soon. No, Ali Deen, you got something to go for.
Come on, man.
Go ahead.
No, I'm basically, just summarizing what we're talking about here. The oppression to women, and you could say Muslimah and all women, is not Islam, it's the lack thereof, right? It's not Islam that's doing it, it's the society you live in. The fact that the first wave even existed is because they weren't allowing women to work or women to, get paid equal or whatever those situations is. Islam never said a woman cannot work. Obviously, we know there's conditions, but it did not say women cannot work or women cannot get educated.
Or they cannot own their property.
Yeah, you cannot have knowledge and stuff like that. And obviously, we can talk about some general stuff that we know and maybe, some people may not know, but Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrated 1/3 of the hadith, right? Of the Prophet alayhi
upward 2,200
come on, imagine, was she supposed to just stay home and stay quiet and be in her home all day? No, she had that capability, she had that knowledge, and she shared it, and for all of us, we should be thankful for that and be grateful, alhamdulillah. So, and I can go on and on and on, but I really want people to do homework behind that. But even in certain cases, I'll give two more maybe. And it doesn't even have to go that far back. One of the, I want to say, the oldest standing universities in the world right now was founded by a Muslim woman. One of the, I want to say the founders, not the founders, but who contributed to the GPS early stages was a Muslim woman. I can keep going, but I'm saying the reason I'm saying is that Islam does not deprive a woman from success in the dunya, like society has put it.
Yeah.
And so to say I want to be a feminist as a Muslim woman, that they don't even allow you to do that. They say no. How can you do that? They try to oppress you. But give us the examples. Give us, she's wearing a hijab, and like Brother Dawood mentioned, come on, we're here to protect our sisters in Islam from the world that's telling them that they need to take it off and express themselves.
There's no need for Me Too movement.
Yeah, come on now, and the oppression. And I want to add one more thing before I forget this. I don't know if it will come up later. Even as a black person, back when feminism was starting up, black people used to fight for civil rights. They used to fight for civil rights. Guess what happened after that? They started this thing called the women's suffrage movement to deter or distract or move the attention from black people fighting for civil rights to take the black woman out of that and say, hey, come fight for womanhood first, but then also put them to the side and say, no, you can't really be a part of this. This is actually for white women to continue and fight for their rights. And they're saying white women were more valuable in the eyes, or should be more valuable in the eyes than black people in general and black men altogether. And I can go down that road, but inshallah, I hope we keep this for another podcast.
We're gonna.
So yeah.
This ideology in and of itself, and a lot of people say, well, actually, it's been around since millennia and time, and no, it hasn't. Okay, this ideology was not around, forever. This just started in this country, in the early, 1900s, and you can go further back than that. But just when slaves were, emancipated. We need to understand the ideology that birthed this movement, and we need to understand that the issues that white women have in this country are not the issues you have.
Right.
Okay. And so what I see always happening is that the members of this group and this ideology take other women from different cultures, religions, and different parts of the world and use them as a stepping stool to get what they want.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's really what it boils down to, because look at you. You said you're a feminist and you're a Muslim sister, and nothing has changed for you. But look at all the advances happening for white women in this country. A lot. They've been eating good off of everybody else's back. So you got to really understand who's benefiting from this, right? Then when you look into the founders of this movement, which are racist, we're going to get into all this in our own first wave and second wave and third wave of feminism. We're going to have a series on it, inshallah ta'ala. But I'm going to give you an example about oppression. Okay. Here's a very famous one. And I like what Ali Deen said, because most of the oppression that happens to Muslim women, if not all of it, in different countries or cultures, whatever it is cultural. It's not Islamic at all, right? And it's a lack of Islam, not the presence of it.
Right.
We have to understand that. Okay. So a very famous issue that people always conflate with Islam proposing it is FGM, female genital mutilation. I remember I was in a class, I was in a women's something class. I don't remember what it was called. Don't ask me how I was in it. I was in it. And so it was like majority women, and it's like me and like two other guys. Then there's like hijabi sisters in there that I know. And so during the last weeks of the course, we had to do a project and talk about like an issue that women are facing. 4 of these hijabi sisters decided to do a project on FGM, female genital mutilation. When they presented this issue, I'm not playing with you, it was like this. Oh, the people who do it the most are Muslims, is in Muslim countries and Muslim lands, and they do it and it's wrong and needs to stop. The end.
Oh my God.
Headline Muslim.
What do you think the non-Muslims are going to think in that crowd? They're going to say like, wait, you guys are Muslims, right? What the hell are you doing a part of this evil religion? You know what? I would be thinking about what the hell? Well, I went to them afterwards. I said, look, cool with your information and all. What is one very important thing that you guys forgot to mention? That Islam doesn't condone any of that. We're not FGM, proponents and advocates. We're not.
Never been.
Right.
Now, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he does encourage that women get circumcised. And this is the issue here. They equate circumcision with FGM.
Right.
FGM and circumcision are not the same thing. The Prophet ﷺ, he commended, or he recommended, for a small part of the clitoris to be clipped. But it's a recommendation, a sunnah. You don't have to do it. It's not wajib, okay? And then even then, it's a small piece. The things that they do in FGM in our country, even Somalia, I'm not gonna lie, it's a problem in our society. It's a problem in our country. Is they do like Fir'aun style and rip the whole inner out and all this so that the woman can't feel comfort. That's wrong. Wallahi, is haram, and we're against it. Right, wherever it is, that's not it's not an issue for me as a man, a Muslim man, to speak out against, because that's dhulm, that's oppression, right? But at the same time, I'm not gonna go and say that it's an Islamic thing, or it's Islam that's pushing this, right? Or attack the Muslims about it. I'm gonna make that clear, right? That this is FGM is one thing, and then there's circumcision. Male and female circumcision is two different things.
No.
Okay, one is mutilation, the other one's not. So now even Muslims in this country, in the West, sisters are proposing to end all type of circumcision. And they label everything as female genital mutilation, which is like weird. Like that's a weird thing to even suggest. The men are to be circumcised. What is going on, right? You hear about one story and it's just like, just take the whole building down. No, like we need to have more basira in this situation. But this is just. But I like what you said, and that should summarize it all. Is that, this is a cultural issues are often conflated with Islam, and it's not the same thing. So if women are oppressed, it's not because of Islam, and we will side with them, honestly, against those sort of oppressions. Second question is, so because of all of these issues, like we mentioned, some women genuinely feel that they need feminism to respond to these issues, and that Islam just doesn't cut it. Wallahi, I had a sister tell me that once before. She said, I said, well, okay, if you have all these issues that you want to help and advocate for women, why don't you just do it under the banner of Islam?
Right.
She said, because the men use Islam, and it's too many corruption with the men, so we have to go outside of Islam to go and respond to it.
I think there's an
What
issue.
do you think about that?
I think what the problem is her version of what she understands as feminism contradicts a lot of the aspects of the Deen itself.
Right.
So she knows if that is brought up, that the men, quote unquote, are going to shut it down, right? And I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So if you were to further ask, what are your certain issues that you have, right, with this the feminism, or what are the things that you're going to be proponent for fighting for? That women should be in this, women should be able to do that, X, Y, Z.
No.
And you'll find a lot of the situations is these sisters don't exactly know what they're fighting for. They don't exactly know what they're fighting for. That's one thing. And secondly, they will be like, okay, we mentioned that Islamically we view, we must first discuss what we should understand. One thing about Islam is that men and women are different, right? And the Islamic society is completely different from the typical Western society. We believe in, first off, that male and female are two different beings with two different roles in the society.
Yes.
Without a doubt. Two different roles in the family, completely different. They also have different responsibilities, and they also have different rights, no doubt.
Beautiful point.
So that is one thing that we need to understand, that the feminism of today, before we talk about the old feminism, the feminism of today does not agree with. They do not agree with that. They themselves are confused. They themselves are confused. What is a woman? يعني اختلاف بينهم. This second wave doesn't like the third wave. يعني
Well, that's true.
Are you يعني who do these people?
The third wave don't like nobody.
This guy don't like that. Everyone's at war with each other. They're all bitter. They're all lost. يعني they have no hidayah. And we have the truth. And dear sisters, you have the truth. You have an honorable way of living. As dignified women, dignified sisters, dignified wives and mothers, do not abandon that to fall into this illusion that is being sold to you of quote unquote freedom and equality, because that is not freedom, and that is not equality, is disaster and oppression. And that's why they had to, they themselves. When did the Me Too movement start? I want to say
maybe
it cannot be more than 10 years ago.
No, it's less than that. I want to say
it's
8
recently.
years or so,
2018, 17.
Yes.
Allah,
So
Allah Ta'ala.
there's core things that I want to mention that led to, in my opinion, Islamically, to this Me Too movement. You have fawahish, immorality, right? You have Hollywood immorality, right? You have objectification of women. You have mixing of genders, right? Right?
Can't forget.
You have all these things that are breaking Islamic barriers. So many barriers that Islam had were broken.
Oh yeah, already.
Were broken. And then eventually it led to these men taking advantage of women.
Yes.
And we understood that in reality, if you put them on equal planes, this will happen. If you just put men and women, I don't care, in the same pedestal, you're going to have men taking advantage of women.
Yes,
Bila shak. And men know this. A true, honest man will tell you this. And that's why men are so protective of their close women folk when other men are coming. Because they know the reality of men.
Yeah.
That's the honesty. And then once we understand that, and once the women folk come to understand this, they realize the Islamic paradigm is the best paradigm, is the best structure for both the men and the women. So that's one thing I really wanted to highlight.
This is a great point, because it's like, well, all these rules, and see, the shaitan makes some of our sisters think that these are just like,
right,
rules to hold you down, and to hold you back from enjoying yourself. You'll be enjoying something, but it won't be, in bliss and happiness. Right. You see, so all these things, Allah is there to protect you. The Prophet ﷺ, his wives are an example, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them to speak softly, to avoid speaking in a sort of
aggressive tone or something.
No, temptatious tone. Right.
No.
So he says, why? Because in some people's heart, fi qalbihim marad.
Yes.
See, so Allah, He says that for some men, in their hearts are diseases.
Right.
And we don't think about this. What are the two main aspects that Allah uses to protect us? One, boundaries. Don't do ikhtilat. Don't mix. Two, when you do interact with each other, do it with ihtiram, respect, and get your point across, move on.
Only what's absolutely necessary.
There's no need for abaya and oil and let's go. Right? And it's like, we're playing with this fire, and then everybody's surprised when there's burning that happens. And that's just what it is, right? Because all these boundaries are set there. This is the part that I don't understand. Is that when there's individuals who don't apply any of these boundaries, you're not going to wear hijab, you're not going to have boundaries between you and other men that are not your mahram. When you do interact with them, you go overboard in your interaction, right? And you وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَعْتَدُوهَا.
Exclusion with another man.
You go over the boundaries. You have friends and relationships that is inappropriate, whether it's even friendship or if it's even deeper than that. And we're going out at nighttime all by ourselves in groups of people out in really spurious places. And then when something happens, it's like, well, where are the Muslims at?
Where were you from Islam?
Where are the Muslims? Where are the shayukh? Where are the men? Where is the... Wallahi, the shayukh been saying the same thing for a long time.
Yes.
فَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا
Yes.
إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Right? Don't go and don't put yourself in situations where you're just building up to a climax that you don't want to be in. You see what I'm saying? And this happens a lot. For the brothers do this, and the sisters do this. This is a big issue in our community. We don't want to apply the Islamic guidelines, but at the same time, we want the protection from Allah, and then we don't want to protect ourselves.
Right.
It's like you're just going out and you're just taking all your clothes off, but you're like, don't look at me.
What?
Don't touch me. Yeah. What are you looking at? No, don't do that. Lower your gaze. So subhanAllah, this is what we're saying. Like, we don't want to apply the hudud of Allah, but then we're surprised when things go south. Ali Deen, what's going on, man?
1 second. Barakallahu fikum. Before Ali.
Please.
I want
I'm
to.
telling you,
Yeah,
I know where the female listeners, I know where they're going to go with this once they heard our brother Uthman's points.
No.
They're going to be like, and you guys feel free to respond to this.
Yeah.
I know exactly
They probably
what's
will.
gonna
What are they going to say, Akhi? Because
This is the classic narrative that's out there.
Yeah.
What the brother just explained about hudud and watching yourself, you know what's going to be explained as? What it's going to be called? You're blaming the victim. Hey, nah.
Forgot about that.
You're
one.
blaming
Yeah.
the
Oh,
victim.
man.
Right? You're
Right,
blaming the
yeah.
victim. That's the one I want our dear brother Ali to respond to, the blaming the victim narrative.
This has been going on, and this happens in our community a lot as of late too. I think the last couple of years, we've touched on this. I don't know if I should respond to this right now.
Let me do
man.
it. Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Let me say something in disclosure, because I already hear all of the voices in my head without people speaking. So let me just respond to this. Barakallahu feekum. A woman should not be attacked. A woman should not be taken advantage of. Any woman should not be assaulted, whether she is dressed appropriately or not.
Hey, nah.
Any man who does such a thing is scum of society. They are oppressors, and they are individuals that are fusaq. Okay.
Deeply corrupt.
So we don't want people to get the game twisted here that we're supporting these people, that we're rape apologists or
Right.
we're
Or
victim
enablers
blamers,
or whatever they call them, yeah.
right? Because
In fact, you
we
could say
wouldn't
Islam
allow
is
any
the
of this
harshest.
happen. As a matter of fact, Islam is the ultimate harshest towards those people. In fact, what we're calling to is greater than the solutions that feminism has to offer. Because what they would say is, hey, let the woman do what she wants, and then everyone else must behave themselves. Okay.
That's not happening.
And if something happens, guess what? She can't go to the police because they're going to ask her for evidence. And when she can't provide evidence, that's called the unfounded case. It's going to get thrown out. Then she goes on Twitter or she goes on social media and gets all these justice movements to go on. And then what happens? It may be sensational for the moment, but nothing happens. Why?
Justice.
This is what we're trying to avoid, to where something happens to our sisters, and we love to protect our sisters, and we
Absolutely.
care, and we love them for the sake of Allah. Something happens to our sisters, and then there's no way of them getting justice. So, as Aisha she actually highlighted this situation very clearly, and what she was saying is, before we get into situations like this, let us really take heed to the precautions that are given to us and the forms of protection that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to abide by. Right? Then this will get rid of a lot of the issues, because then, you know, we're blaming each other and saying, okay, well, it's the men and it's the women, it's the men, the women. But let's be honest, in our society as a whole, are we practicing Islam?
Far from
No. So not only are you going to have issues with women, you know, being treated unfairly, but you're going to have issues all across the board. People cheating each other, business deals going left, you know, political nonsense and politics and siyasa, where we're advocating for things that Allah is not pleased with.
Right.
This is what happens. These are the thamarat, the fruits of a society of Muslims that don't implement Islam as it should be. Ali Deen.
Just a small point, because I don't want this to, you know, basically cast the shadow or be the discussion that happens and really, you know, gets people's attention away from the conversation we're having, the entire
main points.
conversation.
Nah.
Yeah. Obviously, we've talked about this in numerous videos. We have podcast videos that, you know, when the whole thing went down in Minnesota and other states, and what we said about that. So no, we are not enablers or apologists
And
or
we don't
whatever you want to
condone
call it.
that
And we definitely don't
nonsense.
condone it. And if anything, this should want you to really get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for one reason, because the punishment of the land is less severe than the punishment of Islam that would put down on what the men is doing to our beloved sisters out here. So just to want to keep it at that point, inshallah.
So the next point, moving on, just knowing what the average feminist accepts, that let me just read this definition again, just so we all know. So the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes, belief in and advocacy of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, expressed especially through organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. Brother Dawood, do you think that any feminist or someone who ascribes to this thought, this philosophy, would look at Islam and say, Islam as it is, and say, yeah, it's a great religion, and I like the way women are, I like the position and the role of women in this faith?
To answer your question, I don't believe so. I do not believe in any way, like, would they be pleased with our Islamic paradigm? Why? Because what we read the definition, and their understanding of equality and what equality means is not compatible with Islam. Because in Islam, for example, let's just throw out like a modern day contemporary example. In this society, for example, woman can be, for example, a soldier.
Okay.
All right?
That's true.
A soldier with the gun, right in the battlefield with the men.
That's
right?
true.
Or she can be a law enforcement officers in the street chasing after gangsters, right? Making arrests. Put your hands behind your back, getting all physical and touchy with men. In Islam, that is completely disallowed, right? We don't believe in putting our women folk in that kind of situation.
Yes.
Right.
La yajuz. That's
Never.
not from her. That's, first of all, it's not legitimate legally, Islamically. It's not halal to be touching another man or
And
to be
ethically.
involved. And ethically. We don't believe that's her place.
Yeah, that's inappropriate.
Inappropriate. Inappropriate. It's not right, and I don't believe any Muslim man would be comfortable with his sister or mother or wife or anybody ever being in that kind of situation. It's just part of what we call something that doesn't exist in this society, ghira.
Okay.
Ghira.
Okay.
Ghira.
I will be cut you off. So Ali Deen, some people will say to that though, well, we live in the West. We need female counterparts. We need Muslim women that are doctors. We need Muslim women that are police officers. We need Muslim women to be represented in these industries, right? Sure. So it creates a space of inclusion. What do you think about that?
That's one issue with us in America, especially in the West. We want to be included in everything. It don't matter if it's that or some extreme like the alphabet culture and what they do. It's everything. We want to be a part of it, just to say so and so did this, and I'm glad we're a part of it. And it's absolutely wrong. With being a doctor, I just want to give a disclaimer. Like, I would understand the argument if they say, if like a Muslim sister goes to the hospital and she's seen by a doctor, she would rather want to be seen by a woman, you know. And so that, in that sense, you can encourage them. But we know the road to becoming a doctor, and sometimes it's not easy, and how can she uphold that and being a family? So the argument can be made in any way. But to try to be inclusive when women are fighting, I want to say non-Muslim women are fighting for just the extreme at this point. Like you were mentioning, just police officers stuff. There's one thing with firefighters, for example. I think there's a strength assessment where they have to be able to carry, I don't know, I think certain weight, okay, like maybe 200 pounds or something on the shoulder, just to give like the average human being. And obviously in America, we deal with obesity. So if somebody is in a fire and you have to go in there, break in there, find them, carry them on your back and bring them out, is it really possible for a woman to do that? Question is no, it is not possible. That's why many of them who try to get into that training happen to fail, because it is very tough. In becoming a soldier, all these things are tough. Where women, we know where their strength, many of their strengths lie in nurturing and emotional connection and doing jobs that doesn't take a toll on them. But they are still fighting for things like, I want to say income inequality, but to the extent where they're not doing the same job as well. Yeah. I want to point this out for a second. You cannot be a person that says, I need to be paid equal as somebody else if they have a greater skill set than I do, okay? Put women to the side for a second. For example, you're a boss or you own a company or you're a recruiter. You have two men that came to you with their resumes. One is way stronger than the other person for the position. Who are you hiring? The one who's strong for the position, right? Is point blank period. So if you are applying for the same job, yet you cannot keep up with the job, or the job requires you to do X amount of hours or something, it needs you day in and day out, whether it be a police officer or something, a corporate status, whatever it may be, blue collar, white collar. If you cannot do the same job, you cannot ask for the same pay. It's just, it doesn't work. It's illogical. So for us to try to fit in, you're losing not only culture, but obviously Islam. So what feminism likes to do is, for example, I don't mean to dumb this analogy down, but take, for example, they tell the Muslim woman to come join us. They say, we want you to be a part of it. You're a woman, right? Don't worry, you can keep your religion. At the same time, from behind your back, they're trying to detach you from Islam. They're trying to remove you. So the analogy I'm trying to give is basically, and it's a little funny one, but just take this example. If you're in a line for ice cream, right? You have a favorite ice cream. Nah. Say your favorite ice cream is vanilla, just keeping it simple. You like vanilla. And this is with the feminism wave as well. It's just, you're in this line. As you get closer and closer, finally you get to the front of the line to get the ice cream. When you get there, they say, we're not only serving vanilla anymore. In fact, maybe 10% of the ice cream flavor is vanilla. Now it's vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, things you're allergic to, probably, all these things. And they say, we're still serving vanilla, but you also have to accept the rest and eat it too. So the same thing so feminism is doing the same thing. So they'll tell the Muslim sisters, we want you to come because we want to fight for equal rights, but at the same time, you have to accept the fact that we hate men. You cannot be a traditional woman anymore, meaning if you're in the kitchen, we want to spit on you because we don't like you. X, Y, so all these things, man, and I keep going, man, but I'm telling you, I'm going to just leave it at that, inshallah.
I think just disclaimer, I know there will be some people who would dispute the whole we hate men thing.
Yeah.
So it's they don't all hate men. Some of them hate men. Okay, those are those radical.
Yeah.
No, but the new wave is that's what it is.
Those are the radical. Those are the radical feminists. So, I think it's important to know just a quick point about the whole doctor situation. If the point is to have, I don't know what good a Muslim doctor would do, a Muslim female doctor would do to just a non-Muslim female doctor. Will she get to read Quran on you? She's going to give you the same service, right? And so we know that 40% of doctors already are female in this country, right? And so 60% are male. So the idea that we need to have female doctors, I don't get it. What would they do that's like extra to what a female doctor would do? They're going to provide the same services. It's like saying, I want a Muslim cashier from a non-Muslim cashier. They're going to give you the same. It's like, this is what you're buying? All right, here you go, buy. And the most you'll get after is Assalamu alaikum. And you can get that anywhere. You want salams? You get, well, alaikum salam. I give you salam. Assalamu alaikum. Right? So we need to leave these silly arguments where we need a representation in all facets of society. We don't. Wallahi, we don't. We don't need Muslim female police officers. Because now the harm is greater than the good. Great, you have a sister that's now, okay, and you say, oh, well, if there's sisters that need to go to jail, she can lock them up. Cool. What about all the male the male criminals that she has to go and chase down and to bring down and she's expected to deal with, right? Are we going to then say, well, no, she doesn't have to because she's a Muslim woman? That's not how police officers work, right?
I need backup.
You can't say, oh, we're not going to call Asha today because she's a Muslim woman and these are two big guys. That's the nature of police work, is you're going to deal with a lot of criminals, different sizes, everything, right? And that's irrespective to what your religious beliefs are. So maybe you shouldn't be in that profession. And that's one thing we don't really look at is the professions that maybe bringing a lot of money in. The question is it allowed in Islam? Is it something that will allow you to practice your Deen, right? Because then we're like, hey, we need female Muslim doctors. How many of those female Muslim doctors are even practicing the Deen? So we really there's a lot more questions and answers in this regard. For next question, though, we have two more questions, inshallah, and then we'll wrap it up. Nah. So, is there any good in feminism, Brother Dawood?
Is there any good in feminism?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps. And there could be some good in feminism, right? But whatever good it has, it's already been overlapped.
Islam already preceded.
Islam already got that. And you have a package that doesn't come with all the other negatives that we've been mentioning, right?
Simple, yeah.
That's so at the end of the day, there is, to answer the question, do we need feminism? That's really the question. Do we need feminism? No, we do not. We do not need feminism. We have something that answers our family issues, our society issues, political issues for male and female alike. Simple. And that is Islam. In fact, I want to take the time to highlight some of the issues that I believe Islam solves or avoids that feminism brings into the picture, right? The first one I touched upon briefly. I don't believe feminism has the answer to the proper family.
Right.
Rather, I believe it fights against traditional family. A family where they have structure, where you have motherhood, where you have fatherhood as we know it. They do not agree with it. That's truth.
Right.
That's truth. They believe in reality what their idea of a partner, it's more of a partnership.
Right.
An arrangement.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not a traditional family where you have a man, husband, a father, a leader, and you have a woman who's taking care, nurturing, who's the queen of the household. They don't want that.
And there's no clear roles. Like, they don't give any clear. It's
there is no roles.
Hey, let's just figure it out. Whatever is
the
good for
war
you.
is against gender roles. The idea is there is no gender roles. So this is a core principle. There's an issue with feminism, and Muslim sisters need to understand this as well, right? That there in Islam we have roles, and we have specific legislation for Muslim women, right? The whole fiqh from the beginning, starting from tahara all the way through mu'amalat, ibadat, whether it be in worship or whether it be our day-to-day life, Islam takes into account male and female. So there is specific rules and legislation for male and female, and the family structure and what's appropriate for the women folk in terms of in what they do in the society as a job has to be considered. You have to remember you are at the end of the day living on this earth, and your actions, guys, we have to go back to our aqeedah, because at the end of the day, if we are not basing our argument upon قال Allah wa قال الرسول, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, or the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said in his ahadith, and our goal is not to please our Creator, then all of this in justification and these wisdoms that we're trying to explain to you guys, it's not going to have an effect. Because why? Ultimately, it's about your desire and what you see fit. So if what you see as being fit is what your goal is, and ultimately you're pleasing yourself and you want to fit into the society and the whole 9 yards, then whatever we're saying right now is not going to really hit you home. Rather, you're just going to come back with another argument. Men are this, Muslim men are this, etc. And it goes into this eternal little the hamster in the wheel, which is a lost case. So ultimately, go back to your core iman and understand, I believe in Allah. I believe in my Creator. And Allah knows better than I do. He sent down a messenger, and He sent down legislation. He is aware of what's best for both male and female. He's aware of what's best for the whole society at large. All of mankind. All of human beings, period. So when you have this core belief, you won't have this inferiority of having the need to go to some other modern theologies that came along and isms, all the isms, these philosophies and these waves and this kalam farigh yani. There's going to be a new one. 2022, 2023, there's going to be a new ism. So you can't just be hopping along every single ship that comes along and be like, this is the new wave. No, Islam actually agrees with this. No. This is something that is wrong, dear sisters. And don't be thinking, oh, we're just saying this because we're men. We're saying this as sincere brothers in Islam. This is part of the da'wah, and we're trying to save our society, our families, our sisters and future mothers from being tainted from this evil theology that seeks to destroy families.
And evil is.
And at the end of the day, one thing I want to touch upon is I don't believe feminism truly even came in to honor the woman. Why? You might say why. I believe in reality, all these isms that we see, whether it be the alphabet group, the feminism, all these ideologies,
Marxism.
they all come to destroy the central core of a society, which is the family.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the woman at home, and you don't have the father at home, you don't have the mother at home, and kids in daycare or kids in school, who is teaching who and who is being taught and nurtured? And who is doing the nurturing?
Right.
Ask yourself that question. Motherhood is extremely important. And it's upon our sisters to realize motherhood is not a curse. It's actually the most important role.
This is a very
important role. You are nurturing your children. You're teaching them right from wrong. And no one should be doing that outside of you. You're the first person that should be doing that. That's the number one employment job you should be having. Not running around after some random boss. People might see this as, oh, you know, your honor is in motherhood.
And serving another man.
Serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, you know, and this idea of, you know, servitude to your husband as being something that's just backwards. Oh my God. Yeah, man, I don't obey him. Have to obey him? Who is he?
Who?
Okay, your boss tells you to go get him a cup of coffee from from Starbucks. Oh, please, yes, I'll do that.
Oh, man.
And then you have here your husband who's honoring you, protecting you, father of your children, you know, paid a mahar, is taking care of you and loves you, but no, I don't want to serve him. What? So that is, you're destroying yourself, you're destroying your family, and you got everything all upside down.
Ya
So,
Allah.
Barakallahu feekum. I would say, come back to Islam, the traditional way. And not even just Islam, your cultures and your tradition is better than what these people have to sell for you. You might say, oh, there might be issues. Yeah, there might be a few issues in our culture, not la shak, you know? But I will say our culture is more honorable than their culture. Well, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.
Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Man. It's very interesting. You know, I like this analogy of equality here, and to show you why equality doesn't work between men and women. Now, equity works. That means, like the brother mentioned, the definition of wisdom, to put everything in its proper place, right? Everything has its proper place. I have a proper place. Now, the men have a proper place and the women have a proper place. There should be nothing that, oh my God, why did he say it like that? It just is what it is. And that's when you're a servant of Allah. You have a proper place, Allah has a proper place, period. Listen to the servitude, the submission, the yaqeen. You cannot have yaqeen without having submitting yourself 100%. But if you're submitting yourself 80%, 85%, that 15% may land you in the hellfire. Right? It's just that simple. Now, the analogy I want to give about equality, why it doesn't work. If a pregnant woman walks on the bus and the seats are all taken up and there are people standing in the aisles and they're holding on to the rails and she comes on. Now, in the equal society where men and women are given equal rights and privileges and no one is more important than the other, in that society, it would be a woman that's walking on that bus that's pregnant. She walks on and she sees all the seats are taken. And she goes, hey, do you mind if you give me a place to sit because I'm pregnant and it's going to be hard for me to stand? That man will say, well, I got here first before you did.
Equality.
It's my seat. So why don't you get your own? Is he wrong for that situation? In a society where it's built on liberalistic ideology, philosophies, feminism, a godless ideology where there's no Allah in the picture and we're just making up our own. No, he's not wrong. That's equality for you. That's what equality is. But a society where there's equity, where it acknowledges the differences between the men and the women, it would dictate that that man gets up and moves for that woman, or somebody does. That's where our morality takes us. This is why it transcends over time and place. You see, now feminists would have a hard time responding to this. They will say, well, the man should move. Okay, should is a term that is a moral dictation. Where are you getting your morality from? So I want to conclude on this point here. I would say that most Muslim women are not feminists. Would you guys agree?
Right, correct.
Yes.
Most Muslim women are not feminists.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
but many have been influenced by feminism.
Yeah.
So they may not be full-fledged members,
Mm.
but they have some beliefs and reservations with Islam. Now they'll go and they'll use all these different terms to say, well, I'm not against this and I'm not against that. It's just the way it's done. And you say, okay, well, how's it done? Is it done bad? Okay, it's done in a bad way. What's the solution? Well, stop doing it. So now, indirectly, we have a way with the shari', the lawmaker. Okay, and we play these games. This is why submission is important. You know you have submission if you accept Islam as it is. You accept Islam as it is. Don't change a thing. But once you start to say, well, I don't know if we need to do this anymore, or maybe we should do it differently, and then, you know, I want to talk about this last point is how has Islam or how has feminism influenced the way Muslim sisters have seen that ascribe somewhat to the ideology, not fully. How has it influenced the way they look at Islam and their lenses?
First, I think for it to be possible, a lot of times, a lot of sisters and even brothers who quote unquote can tell or identify themselves as feminist or whatever you want to call it, it's the lack of knowledge, okay? Lack of deen, lack of akhlaq, lack of good character, lack of all these things. Just look at the character traits of, you know, feminism, the people in feminism, the way they look, the way they act, the way they address things, the aggression, whatever they're pushing, their agenda, X, Y, and Z. So when a sister falls for these traps, is because they're trying to, like I said before, detach Islam from her belief, from her ideology, and following the right path. So it's harmful for her to feel like these people are trying to empower me, but yet Islam is not trying to empower me. And that is the mistake, because she thinks that I can be Muslim and I can be stand for woman empowerment, but obviously is masqueraded and is actually telling you you are greater than the next human being that is a man, that is also a traditional woman, and X, Y, and Z. We can keep going on that. But I just wanted to make this point is you got to understand that if just take for example, if we were equal, what's the reason for having two of us, man and woman? If we were equal, shouldn't we just be one? And I don't mean to get philosophical or anything like that. What I'm trying to say basically is we work together, we complement one another, but feminism never pushes that. It says, no, you need to get ahead. And there's this saying, I looked it up earlier and I remember hearing this often. It's, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And this saying fits perfectly into what we're talking about today, because it teaches women to go fast and live that fast life, get every accomplishment, reach that high level of happiness and all these things. And then once they reach that goal or whatever it is that they set for them, they get stuck there.
They're all alone.
And for many women, it comes at a time where it's like they're in their 30s, unmarried, no family, no men, they listen to nothing, and they're eating alone. And I've seen so many videos of women crying and saying, man, I wish I was married, or I wish I changed. Why are we waiting until you reach that point to be like, man, I regret my past. I should have listened. I should have followed the Deen correctly and all this stuff. But if you want to go far, you go together. That is you and your husband, or the men in your life, your father or your brothers and stuff like that, and them teaching you and protecting you and guiding you in the right path. The Prophet ﷺ, obviously Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you down except as mercy to mankind. If you look at the Prophet ﷺ and the way he treated not only his wives, but also the women in his community, the women of his time, they can attest. We can go so deep into it. They can attest for the way he was so just to them, the way he not only listened to them, gave them knowledge, gave them that empowerment that they deserved. And it's not because he's a feminist and whatnot. It is just being just and understanding that Islam is just. And he's guiding us on a straight path. And when these folks come in without that knowledge I'm speaking of, it is to misguide you, and it's going to come to you, and you may not realize it at a time when you reach your last breath or your last moments where you can't even fight it and say, man, I wish I'd have changed. Because a lot of these founders and these people, they preach these things, but at the same time, under the curtains or behind the curtains, I mean, they go to their husbands and they're submissive as well. So do not fall for these traps, inshallah. That's what I just wanted to conclude with that.
Okay. Jazakumullah khairan.
Yeah.
Brother Dawood, and then the same question I asked you is how has feminism influenced the way Muslim sisters that ascribe somewhat to the ideology, the way they look at and perceive Islam?
I would say it is for those of them who lack strong background Islamic knowledge, or who may lack in certain aspects of yaqeen and certainty in Islam. It has definitely probably poisoned in a way.
You're right.
It has caused them to have shak and doubt in certain rulings,
Yes.
which is so dangerous.
Yes.
Because we all know the ayah in the Quran, ذلك بأنهم كرهوا ما أنزل الله فأحبط أعمالهم. So it's a dangerous thing where you're having bother or you're feeling discomfort with the legislation of Allah and His Messenger. So it's taken some Muslim sisters into that dark alleyway in where they're looking to certain rulings within the Deen of Islam, whether it be inheritance, whether it be the traditional husband and wife relationship that Islam promotes, whether it be just the paradigm of leadership of men in this that's found within our faith and our Islamic societies. They're finding this problematic because they've been infected by this ideology. And that's kind of like the root cause here. And a lot of them are unaware. That's the problem. And ignorance mixed with desire are two destructive diseases. So if you're ignorant about Islam, and you're ignorant and your iman is weak, and your certainty in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is weak, and you're blind following those around you, and your companionship is from awliya shaitan. In the end of the day, either the people you are with are from the friends of Allah Azza wa Jal, or they're the friends of the shayateen. And the people who are promoting feminism, they are people of shayateen. Wallahi, they're shayateen. Uqsimu billah innahum shayateen. Why? They promote sexual deviancy. They promote chasing desires. They promote capitalism. They promote atheism. They promote godlessness.
Right.
And then you have the other side, when we're promoting chastity, we're promoting virtue, chastity, respect, manhood, dignity, womanhood, honor, nurturing your children. We're promoting pure things, healthy things, structure and discipline and rights. That's what we're all about. But the other side is about just destroying you. And that's what is happening in the society. You have, like the brother said, a godless society, a satanic society. And feminism is from it. Let me say it to you straight. Whether you realize it or not, it's part of the isms that are part of this destructive satanic way that is causing people more harm, more depression, more anxiety, more loss in any sense that you can imagine. So protect yourself by learning your deen, learning the prophetic tradition. Learn how the Prophet ﷺ, learn about the early Muslim women, how they used to conduct themselves. Learn about your great grandmothers and how they used to live. Be real. Stop trying to be something that you're not and selling your deen out, selling your culture out, selling your family out. All for what? For this little utopia that's considered to be woman independence. I'm free, I'm strong, I can do what a man can. No, you cannot do what a man can, and there's no shame in that. You've been created differently. The same way a man cannot do what a woman can.
Just can't.
Just accept that. There's a divine wisdom behind that, and there's no shame in that. The shame is acting fake, being something that you're not, selling out your deen, selling out your culture, all just trying to fit in. This criticizing your deen and the men of the religion, the scholars of Islam, all just to get this upper hand to say that I'm a feminist, I'm a true warrior, I'm a true female warrior. What are you doing? This is wrong. Stop this approach and be aware, learn your deen, submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and strengthen your iman.
100% though.
And love the legislation of Islam and be content with it, follow it, and this will be your success in this world and the after. Do other than that,
then أباك وتعالى.
يعني عليك يعني إنما علينا البلاغ. We've conveyed the message. So بارك الله فيكم.
جزاكم الله خير. You know, I think to wrap this whole podcast up, the root cause of trying to look for something outside of Islam to solve issues of society is one that is of ignorance. This is jahl. Jahl murakkab. I would go as far to say it's compound ignorance. And honestly, you know, we have scholars, we have people of authority, we have people of, you know, academia to go back to. So, but we don't see individuals who have an issue and ascribe to these sort of ideologies almost never go back to the right people to ask questions, never. Right? Yeah. We don't go back to people who have knowledge, rasikhun fil ilm, you know, the people that of knowledge, and we don't go back to ulul amr, the umara, which are the ulama partially, and we don't go back to them to ask questions if something is bothering you. What we do is we go on Twitter,
Reddit,
YouTube, Google. Yeah. We listen to Sharon Akbar, you know, talk to us about it, just completely distorting history. Oh, the Prophet Muhammad was the first feminist. Aisha, she led an army into battle, and she was a general. Hey, Shahada, what is this? Allah, this is like Narnia. This is not even Islam. You see what I'm saying? Look, you know, some of the things that we highlight in order to appease. This is also another issue too, and we're going to talk a lot more about it when we do the series of feminism, first wave, second wave, and third wave. But we do this thing to try to appease non-Muslim women to really focus or get interested in Islam. We make stuff up on the spot. We say, "Oh yeah, my husband, I don't have to listen to him." Where does it say that? Right. No, actually, he has to listen to me. By the way, his money is my money. Is a non-Muslim women are like, wow, this is some great stuff here. Hijab is just for the forehead. Really low. You know, it's getting hotter.
Whatever it takes.
This I like this. This is a great thing. And then I can wear. It's my choice. Hijab is my choice too. This is just heaven here, and it's not that way. Khadija was a business woman. Well, Khadija wasn't out there just interacting with men. She hired people to go and do the job. Right. Okay, contractors. And one thing that Ali mentioned is that we need to understand the honor that women were given in this society. And Brother Dawood also mentioned this as well, is that if you look through the Quran and Sunnah, look at the type of women that Allah praises. Women that are mothers, right? And even the hadith that people always quote, that they attribute to the Prophet ﷺ that says that الجنة تحت أقدامها أمهات يعني أو كما قال, that the paradise is under the feet of women, mothers, ummahat, mothers, right? Allah, He praises women. Obey your parents and your mother who carried you, huh? So all these things, sorts of ahqaf, it mentions this. Maryam, laysa dhakra kal-untha, the male's not like the female. And this woman here, the daughter that Allah blessed this woman with was Maryam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam. So Isa alayhi salam, his honor is being the son of Maryam. That's why we say Maryam. We say Isa ibn Maryam. Right. You see? Allah, He praises. The Prophet ﷺ, the way he dealt with women was justice. He gave them, he listened to them, he gave them an ear. He included them, and they contributed heavy, but he also told them the truth. We need to remember this. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't just letting women do whatever they want. Right. And I think it's that aspect of Rasulullah that we need to really explore. Because all we hear is like fine and dandy stuff like, oh, yeah, the Prophet was nice. Oh, the Prophet said be good to women. Oh, the Prophet said, yeah. So, you men, get it together.
Be like the
Prophet ﷺ also told the women to obey their husbands. The Prophet ﷺ said many things that it would be hard for a Muslim woman, today modern Muslim woman, she would have a hard time grappling with And you know what makes it a hard time for her to grapple with? What is the reason? No submission, no knowledge. But we just hear things from society, from social media, and we run with it. This is why it's important to learn your deen. Then many things will fall into perspective. Learn your deen, you can't get finessed by men. Learn your deen, you can't get finessed by kuffar. Learn your deen, and you'll have a great and straight relationship with Allah. That in the hereafter, you can meet Him and say, "Oh Allah, I believed, and I did as you told me, and with my family and the men in my life, they are pleased." Now, and you'll meet the Prophet ﷺ. But if you don't, wallahi, we need to pay attention to this, and we're going to talk a lot more about it. Just quick words of ending. I know there's so much to say, Brother Ali, Brother Dawood.
Like I said before, we can only go so far without one another. We complete each other.
We need each other.
Is in maybe
but the right way.
Few cases, but in general, without one another, we can't go far. If you want to pursue contentment in this world, if you want to pursue peace and blissful and connection with Allah, having that spouse, whether it be a husband and a husband having a wife, when you have that, and children seeing parents balance one another, and raising children, understanding the roles that we have as men and as women, you create a foundation for success in the dunya and in the akhirah.
SubhanAllah.
And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Now, Brother Dawood, give us a quick 30-second.
Quick 30 seconds.
We're going to revisit this anyways. So whatever we left,
it.
inshallah, we'll pick it up. And we ask our sisters to forgive us if we have offended you. And if there's something that you would love to contend us with, that we're incorrect with in Islam, please, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ.
Yes. So at the end of the day, this discussion we're having at the end of the day shouldn't be opinionated. That's one thing I want to.
It's not personal.
This is not opinionated. Whatever thing that we may have said that is against the Quran and the Sunnah, like the brother said, then feel free to bring that up. Right? At the end of the day, we are under the same borders that you are upon, which is hearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message and the Prophet ﷺ's message and following it. So we agree, right? And at the end of the day, whatever we are saying, if it's according to the Quran and the Sunnah, which it is, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is for the greater good of the Muslim community, for ourselves and in the hereafter. So let's humble ourselves. Let's not be opinionated. Let's be honest. And let's look towards the success of Jannah as our main goal. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And that the key to that is submitting to Allah Azza wa Jal and following the legislation, following the love of Allah and His Messenger with action. Because surely love alone is just a matter of, just a statement. It has to be followed by action. So at the end of the day, all of this, our lives, our aqidah, our belief system, our theology, our actions, everything is all under the context of al-Islam. And that is true happiness and true peace. Barakallahu feekum.
Barak. Let's just go back to our foundation. If there's an issue with something that we said, our foundation is Quran and Sunnah. What's your foundation? You want to hold us to those standards? Bring whatever you got. Wallahi, we'll address it. If we said something that's incorrect, we'll address it. Right? But if you're going to respond to us with the Quran and Sunnah. Don't respond to us with anything else. Because on the day of, we're here to worship Allah. We're not here to worship our desires. We're not here to look at what we think and what we not and our preferences. We're here for Allah and His Messenger. So that's what we want to know. That's why we're doing these series, is so we can get down to the bottom of it. So far, feminism, as it is generally, and we're going to get into deeper, the wave series. But so far, it doesn't seem like it's compatible. Hey, if you think it is, let us know why.
Please.
Comment, in the comments. Tell us why you think it's something that's compatible, right? Using the principles of feminism. I don't think a feminist will come to a measure and say, oh, the women are in the back. Oh, great stuff. Only the man can give the khutbah. Oh, yeah, I love this. And lead the prayer. Oh, this is too much. This is amazing. I don't think feminists would like that. So now you as a Muslim woman have to think about this. What are you going to do now? This is a mawqif point for you. Are you going to side with them? Or are you going to side with Allah and His Messenger? Inna hadaynahu sabil, imma shakira wa imma kafura. Allah showed us the way. It's up to you to choose the way of His pleasure or use the way of His displeasure. And we'll end with that. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Like, share this video, comment, interact with our podcast, and let us know what you like, what you think, what you would like to see in the future. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.